into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
I'm waiting for the song introduction. It's Brooke's choice. Let it sit for a second.
Very slow intro.
It's like the Guitar Hero intro. There it is. Welcome to your Bachelorette after show here on AfterBuzz TV. We have a lot of drama to get through tonight, but we thought we'd start it off with a little song that is relative to Shawn specific. Would you agree, Brooks?
And maybe Ben H a little bit.
It's relative to everybody.
I would say there are a couple guys who are questioning whether they should be here or not.
Should they stay or should they go? We will discuss it and break it all down tonight. Your Bachelorette after show. Can you guys please introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Cathy Kelley. You can find me on Twitter at Catherine Kelley.
And I'm Brooks Forster. You can find me on Twitter at Brooks Forster. And on Snapchat at Brooks-Forster. Don't step on my Snapchat.
I'm not stepping on. I'm trying to make sure you get it all in there.
All right, cool. And you can email me.
At
wherever my email can be found.
There it is. I'm Danny Hoyt. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Danny Hoyt and Snapchat at Danny Hoyt47. Okay, let's start this off.
I think we should mention before we start, a couple people were wondering where JC was last week, and unfortunately, he had some things come up, so he decided to not do the rest of the season, which we're all really bummed about, because he's been a staple on this show for, I think, 7 seasons now, which is crazy. He was part of the OG AfterBuzz crew. We'll miss him a lot, and hope he will be back for next season.
Hoping he comes back for sure, and that we do you proud, JC.
Love you. Miss you, JC.
From all of us here, including Brooks.
He
had a long monologue right before the show opened. I'm just kidding. Nobody.
I just didn't want to keep dragging on.
Yeah, but he's honestly been a huge part of this, and he's been a good friend of mine both on the show and off. So we're all really gonna miss him.
Yeah, well said, Cathy. Well said. Well, let's start this off with talking about Shawn. Since we played the song about him, the show kind of opens up talking about Shawn. We left Shawn, and he was in a pondering mood. He wasn't sure what to do, and then he goes upstairs. Now, are you guys a fan of the sneak away from the other guys? Is that something you think is...
It's just been happening a lot this season. Like I don't know. I feel like either the guys don't feel like they're rules or they're being told that they can do whatever they want. But Kaitlyn also seems to have more leeway with being able to hang out with guys off camera.
It's stressing me out.
Is it?
Yeah, the season is stressful. It's like she's stressed, I'm stressed. Are you guys stressed out there? I mean...
It seems like
it's a stressful season to watch.
The Bachelorettes are always much more stressed than the Bachelors are. And that's a recurring theme that I've noticed. Like, I feel like Ashley Hebert was really stressed. Andy was really stressed during her season. And Kaitlyn's had a lot of backlash from guys this season, too, which I totally understand why she's feeling that way. But they've also changed up a lot on her season. So I don't really think she, knows what she's up against.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think she's also had, a lot of the dates, they kind of progress, and it seems like progression is stifled a little bit. And I think, not to fast forward to the conversation with Chris Harrison and her, we can dive into that a little bit later, but we're not seeing the same conversations in the dates that we've seen in previous seasons. That's my point.
Yeah, it feels, I guess I noticed it later on, when one of the dates started off. It feels a little more surfacey to me.
Yeah. Are you Ian right now?
Feels like they're not diving deep enough. Feels like it needs to be on a Princeton level conversation.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of the reason why we're not seeing a lot of the dates is because they've been focusing so much on the cocktail parties and the rose ceremonies that we haven't really, I feel like they've cut down the dates so much, or at least what we see as far as on TV. And that's been screwing with me as a viewer. And I don't know if it's been the same thing for anyone at home, but I don't like the dates or the rose ceremonies happening an hour and 20 minutes into the episode, and it's like from last week's rose ceremony.
Yeah, it's not always an hour and 20 minutes. Sometimes it's towards the end or it's in the middle.
At the very beginning. It screws with me.
So you're saying that there should be an expectation for the viewer. So if you're going to follow a format, then follow the format.
Well, there always has been a format.
Yeah.
I just miss the old format, and it's nothing. I do appreciate that they're trying something new, but for me, it's not that great.
Well, with that said, let's move on to the 2-on-1 date, which Brooks pointed out. It has been a while since we've seen one of these. I was trying to think of the last 2-on-1 I remember, and I can't.
Michael and Ben on Dez's season.
No, they've done it more recently.
That was my favorite one, though. Just a shout out to
as you're texting Michael. He had some good tweets tonight. You pointed those out.
Yeah, hilarious. If you don't follow Michael Garfol, you should follow him. His
give me your top
amazing.
2 favorite ones right now. 3. Top 2 or 3 favorite ones.
You need to do the favorite one.
I haven't seen that many tears in Ireland since the potato famine. Too soon.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's good.
Awful.
All it's okay cupcake. All pastries have an expiration date or something like that. I forget exactly.
Only thing worse than being left alone on a cliff would be being left alone with a cliff. Cliff Huxtable, that is.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
So good.
Wow.
You were brave to take that one on. I just couldn't remember all of it.
Well, I just read it from my phone.
See, that's pretty funny. You should follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
That is. We'll follow him on. What's his Twitter handle? Give it out since we're saying.
Michael Garfola.
There it is.
Yeah. He's Catholic, by the way, so if you're Catholic, you'll find a lot of Catholic humor there.
There you go.
He has a lot of inside Catholic jokes.
Kathy, if you're a girl and you're on a 2-on-1 with Joe and JJ, tell me what sticks out right away between these two guys.
The fact that JJ said he cheated on his wife. So, that's a huge thing to me, and that's a complete deal breaker in any relationship.
So right away, even though it was a previous relationship and not on you, right away that's a deal breaker for him. Like you wouldn't even give him a chance. Big enough red flag?
I think that that's a huge red flag that you would cheat on your wife.
Yeah.
So JJ's doomed.
I mean, I just think that cheating, for me, it's the most selfish thing that you can do to your partner. Like it's completely for, your own happiness. You're putting yourself before them, and especially in a marriage, when you marry someone, you're supposed to put their happiness before your own. And that would be a red flag for me.
Do you think that's what did him in?
No, I think that she just wasn't feeling it before. I think that they had a friend chemistry going on, good friend vibes, but honestly, I didn't really see Kaitlyn ending up with a guy who already had a kid. And I think he was the last dad who was still there. And she was very good about, sending them home as early as she knew that they weren't for her, just so they could spend time with their kids. But I don't know.
Brooks, did you see something more between her and Joe than her and JJ? Do you think that was the right choice? Or do you think both of them are not going to be the final guys?
Yeah, I think it was a lesser of two weevils.
That's how it always is.
Was that a Michael Garofalo tweet too?
No.
That's a Brooks Forrester original?
That's actually from a movie somewhere. There's somewhere in a movie quote. Sorry, Ian.
Stolen.
But I was gonna say to that point, with JJ and Joe, I don't see her ending up with either of them, and I think JJ ended up in typical villain fashion. Top 6 or whatever, 5 or 6, and then he went home.
I don't think they've ever put someone who ends in final 2 on the 2-in-1 date.
Yeah, I don't think they would.
They wouldn't risk them being sent home.
Yeah, I don't think they would. I think they strategically put 2 people that are kind of both probably not going to be top 5.
Yeah, because then you wonder,
Yeah.
you're left wondering the entire date, who are they going to send home?
Yep. Yeah.
Or both of them. And I think it was Chris Soules sent home both girls, Kelsey and Ashley.
Yeah. Well, I thought for a second
I do remember that
she was going to do that tonight after she says no to JJ. Then she was like, Joe, I can't quite give you this yet, so come with me. I thought she was going to send them both home. I thought that was done.
Joe just seems like a nice Southern gentleman.
Seems like a great guy. I don't feel like their humor would fit.
They definitely, I don't see a chemistry between them.
And that she says that's her big thing. That's such a big part of her life. And there's something about that vibe doesn't fit for me. But I'm just a casual viewer.
As a viewer, though, I feel like not just us, but I feel like the people at home from reading tweets, they all have a good idea of who of these final 6 guys have, or I guess final 5 after tonight, have potential to be in that final 3 who are going to get overnight dates.
Yeah.
It seems really obvious, at least with 2 or 3 guys.
I think it was uncomfortable when JJ was like, on the 2-on-1 date, says, I just, gotta say, I'm falling for you, so let's cheers to that.
Right in front of Joe.
I'm like, you could have picked any other time. Like, you could get some alone time, or that was really awkward.
He's done that throughout the season, though. Like, I feel like he's trying to, the equivalent of a bird, like, puffing up their feathers or something. Like, he's trying to show that there's a connection there in front of the other guys to intimidate them.
He's been an interesting villain. I don't feel like he's been a straightforward, always villain. He's just had a lot of really weird things that he said early on that kind of carved out that... But then I feel like they backed off from painting him that way.
Yeah.
The last 4 episodes...
Whatever happened to his bromance?
Yeah, there was just like that faded, and then I feel like it was ever kind of since that turned into a bromance, he was no longer a villain. He was more just like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Started on a cliff, and it ended on a cliff. Note.
And scene. Okay, so next we see, and I thought this was interesting, so we see Joe walk back in with his rose after their date.
Question.
Yeah.
Before we go on, though, the conversation between JJ and Kaitlyn about him cheating on his wife, by the way, I thought it was interesting because I wonder if she's coming from a position of like, okay, if I don't end up with Nick, does she perceive like his actions on? Is she more understandable because of maybe some of the guilt that she's feeling as well, being like, I feel like I'm in a similar situation where I've maybe betrayed the trust of some of the guys here. Does that make sense? I just wondered, being in her head, and I by no means think that what she's done is, and I'll go out and say this, I think what Kaitlyn's done is fine. Like, if she's exploring
Sleeping
her relationships, then she should be, if she wants to sleep with Nick and explore that relationship, that's up to her. And I understand what she's saying. She has other relationships that are progressing, and that might stifle those relationships, but that's her choice to make, and if that's how she wants to do that, I think that's fine. But I just wondered, being in her head, like, if that guilt is guiding her decisions now.
It
we saw
seems
that
like
later on when she started her rose ceremony with, I'm not perfect. I was like, oh, that seemed to be like an indicator into her psyche of how she was approaching the situation.
It seems like she's beating herself up a lot for this. Amy Schumer had a really good tweet this past week, and she's like, oh no, a girl trying to date a guy and potentially thinks she might marry him, sleeps with him. What's the world to do? It was just, it was so blunt, and it's like, okay, that happens all the time. And when put in that context, like, why is anyone slut shaming her for doing that?
Yeah.
I think the show almost made their relationship prior to Nick coming on less than it actually was. Like,
you think
originally they made it sound like,
oh,
they exchanged a couple text messages. Obviously, it was much more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they made out immediately.
Yeah. There was clearly a bond there. Yeah. And whether it was lust or love or whatever, I don't think that what she did was wrong either.
So, any other thoughts on that?
No, but that's been kind of the main theme of this episode. It's like everything's been revolving around that one issue, is her sleeping with Nick.
What she said to JJ, though, I thought it was great. She just said, you didn't have to tell me that. Like, you didn't have to say that on the show. So I really do appreciate you being honest with that. And that's something he didn't have to be honest about, or he didn't have to tell her on camera.
Yeah. So, well, to continue with this Kaitlyn beating herself up thing, so then we see Shawn. Joe walks in with his rose on. Shawn obviously gets frustrated, gets up and walks out of the room to go back upstairs every time. 2 nights in a row. He's going back upstairs to explain why he went up the night before, which seemed like a little bit of like drama. It's starting to seem a little drama-ish to me. with Shawn. I don't know if you guys picked up, but like, so as soon as he gets in the room, and Kaitlyn's still saying like, I'm wondering if he knows. So she's waiting for him to just at any second be like, explain yourself.
I can't say that I wouldn't be feeling those feelings that he is at this moment, because I've never been in that situation where, or I hope I've never been in the situation where the person I'm dating is dating 6 other people.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. I'd go crazy.
And then living with those 6 other people. However, I mean, a lot of people said on Twitter, and I kind of have the same thoughts, like, has he never seen the show before? Does he not know how this works?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's seen the show, but he might have grossly underestimated how his feelings
were. I think they said that later on. Like, I don't know who was talking. Maybe it was Tanner, or maybe it was Ben H. that said, you know, I think he felt early on that he was on top of the totem pole, and he's realizing, okay, maybe I'm not, and that's really starting to mess with him. But I don't love how Shawn gets up and leaves. I don't think that that's fair to, because if all the guys just got up and left, we wouldn't have a show. You know, it's just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he gets some privilege as well, and Kaitlyn talks about that. Like, listen, I've reassured you, and I think that really just stems to the confidence that he's portraying in himself and in the situation.
Well, is it weird that Kaitlyn hugs him and then they cut to audio of her saying, I'm so relieved that he's here to talk about San Antonio, or talk about our conversation and not about Nick.
So no one ever found out that she slept with Nick in the house?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, until it looks like the way they edit it, until she confesses.
Yeah.
They've also done that in past seasons where they make it look like something happens and it never actually ends up happening, or at least is never shown on the episodes.
But it looks like we'll get to see it next week.
Yeah.
I hope so, because it makes for great TV.
So do you think, because remind me to bring this up later when we talk about Chris Harrison coming out and even the playing field. Bookmark it.
I was going to say her conversation later with Nick kind of alludes to that. Like, hey, you're telling guys way too much about our dates.
Is that what you felt? I didn't feel that.
Oh.
I felt she was saying, I hope you're not doing that because I want it to come from me and not from you. So have you?
No, she said.
Anybody?
I thought she said you went to the house and you told all the guys that we had a super romantic date, and that's not your place.
I think you're right, because then he started defending himself.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later, but
just get so excited about him and just jump ahead.
What?
But you're talking about Shawn. She had said, if Shawn leaves, then my heart would be broken. We see that clip early, right?
Yeah.
And then they have their conversation, and then later on, we kind of see her pulling back. It's like, listen, maybe I should have told him, and now we need to slow down. I was like, man, that was a big 180 in a short amount of time.
She even told him, she's like, well, the only doubts that I'm having is that I have to keep on reassuring you.
Yeah.
So she was 100% for him, and then now that he's asked for reassurance 3, 4, or 5 times, I think she's starting to have doubts and preparing herself. So if Shawn does leave, what do I do? And she's starting to think about the other guys as potential front runners, I guess.
I thought it was interesting how she explained the "you're it" thing that he kept holding on to, which was like his huge piece of validation was the "you're it" that she had said to him the night that she went down there. And the way she explained it made sense to me, in that he was asking for validation, and she was like, well, yeah, I mean, you're it. Which seemed a lot less significant to me when she explained it than the way he explained it.
I don't know if that's how she actually felt.
I don't know. It's sad. Well, and then she called it a big regret. She said it's a big regret of mine.
And I love that in the rose ceremony at the beginning, she says that, and everyone internalized it like something that they did. Everyone's like, something I did, and something I did.
Well, let's move on, because that's the next
me.
thing I want to talk about anyways. Yeah, it was like everyone changed to wondering what was going on. But then Shawn says, everybody's wondering, and I know it's 100% about me, when it's not. I feel like that needed to be built up more.
Yeah.
Well, and it was, we got to see at least Chris' perspective immediately. He was like, something's up.
There's got to be...
the way she said, I'm not perfect, something's up.
Yeah.
Something's got to be off this season, too, because we've never seen before. We've had we've thought that someone might be a front runner, but we've never heard this early on in the season, yes, they're it. And there's just a couple other people there. So,
Yeah.
So it can't be Shawn.
Either it can't be Shawn, or maybe he does leave, and I don't know. I don't know why they would do that.
I don't know either. Well, it makes for great TV, that's for sure. I mean, I'm very curious.
So you like that part of the change in the show? That's nice.
Yes and no. Like, I wish that, as a fan, like, I almost wish that I hadn't heard anything about the off-camera time. Like, it changes it so much. Because I know that happens, like, in the back of my mind. Like, I know that happens every single season. But part of the TV show is that you don't know about that.
Well, moving on to the part where Shawn now apologizes. And she says, we need to take a step back. Do you think... I mean, how did that make you feel when she said, we need to take a step back? Do you think that was her saying we need to take a giant step back? Or is just trying to give him some sort of signal of like, hey, calm it down, buddy?
I think that's how he felt for sure. He's like, man, I pushed this too far. Like, I need to calm down a little bit.
But why did he just finally realize it then?
Because she told him, you need to calm it down. And it's like, he wouldn't relax from anybody else telling him. I'm sure the producers are saying that as well. Like, listen, like, go over the things that she said to you. You're okay. Because that makes their job a lot harder, too, when he has to get up and walk out. And then they've got to tend to him and try to keep him, involved and, in a good space, because the more detached he gets, then the less footage they get of a great relationship. So if they start losing him too early, then I think it really affects the show. So
it's clearly affecting them. Not being in a good place right now is affecting her other dates. She mentioned that she didn't sleep at all the night before, and she wasn't as present on the 2-on-1 date. It was clear that she wasn't really as present on her date with Chris later in the show.
And with Jared. There was just kind of, we don't see that witty Kaitlyn that's fun and laughing. We're not seeing that.
Yeah.
Well, we move on to the roses. And Ben H, Chris, and Shawn get roses. Ben Z and Tanner go home.
I was really surprised at Ben Z going home.
Yeah,
I did not see him going home that soon, and I feel like there was no warning for him or us.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Tanner, I kind of assumed Tanner would go home.
We just didn't see a lot of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ben Z over someone like Joe, which she said that she was impressed with him. She said, we just haven't had enough time. So I wondered if that was her decision to keep Joe over Ben Z, because she's had some time with Ben Z and had already figured that out. Like, I know that's not going to work. I still don't really know about Joe because we really haven't got to spend a lot of time.
Interesting. So you might think maybe she had a play in the decision for the producers on who the two were for 2-on-1?
I don't know. I think that, that decision might have been made by the producers from what she was already saying.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Well, they're off to, is it Killarney Island? Killarney Island. And Jared, who you pointed out, Brooks, we hardly got to see any of them up until this point, gets to ride in the Mini all the way there, and the guys are right on the bus.
Yeah. Before all of this happened, like back at the cocktail party, I did want to mention Ben H was really upset with Kaitlyn during this. And they had their whole conversation.
He dissected it perfectly.
He basically said when Kaitlyn ended up giving Shawn validation the other night, that's the first time he saw her have a connection with another guy, and it made him put a guard up. So I think that's also what she was alluding to later in the night at the cocktail party when she said, I screwed up this week.
Yeah, he kind of dissected that perfectly, didn't he?
That sucks for him.
On the timing, yeah.
I do honestly see a connection between them. Yeah. I see a connection between them. I see a connection between her and Shawn, and I see a connection between her and Nick.
Yeah, agreed. Well, so what'd you think of this whole, they get to ride in the Mini thing? It seemed like it's something when their vibe was a little more off this time to me than normal. It didn't seem like it was as fluid or as fun. Like, he seemed very almost eggshelly to me when he was like, yeah, except the company's not great. He's like, I'm just kidding. She knows he's kidding.
I know.
Like, it seemed a little more...
I think he could tell. It's like when your girlfriend's on the brink of tears and you're trying to cheer her up, but, like, you also know that if you say the wrong thing, she's just going to start, like, emotional vomit everywhere. So you are walking on eggshells, and I think that's kind of how he felt. He's a really good guy. He wanted to cheer her up, but he didn't know how, and that's a really uncomfortable position to be in, especially early on in a relationship.
And especially when it's obviously something that he has no idea about and doesn't want to push it either, because if he does remotely even hint to it, then she's gonna start crying like she did with Chris. It's like,
if he asks her about it, then he kind of almost gets friend zoned too, which sucks.
Yeah, geez. Well, I did think something was cool they did was kissing that thing backwards. That whatever it is.
Blarney Stone.
Blarney Stone.
It's for luck, right? That's the.
Yeah, he said he got lucky in Ireland. That thing was cool.
it was cool. And when she presented it, like everybody knew about it. Like, oh yeah, you know the Blarney Stone is famous. Yeah, I was like,
I've heard about it before.
What are you talking about?
It's in like a lot of old stories.
Yeah,
clearly none of you are very Irish.
I'm Irish too, and I've never heard about it.
Catherine Kelley, that's super Irish.
A lot of old stories, by the way, Cathy. What are you reading? Old pirate books? Or
pirate books? What are you talking
What do you mean
about?
old stories? What are you reading?
Like old tales.
Of old time stories.
Of olden
Hey,
time.
Cathy, what are you doing tonight? I'm just sitting down to some old tales and
I read them on the interwebs.
And a glass of tea.
No, Jameson,
By
duh.
the fire. Hey, P.S. Everybody that's on chat roll and that is tweeting us right now, I'm getting tweets during the show. Thank you so much for joining in. That's why we do this. So please continue to do that. We love that. I know Brooks has his computer open, I think, to the chat roll. I did not have mine tonight because I was traveling. So apologies there. But thank you guys for chiming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, please continue that. Okay, combo with Chris. This was telling. Brooks, you said you had something that you wanted to flag and bookmark and talk about in Kaitlyn's combo with Chris about evening the playing field. She sits down with the one and only Chris Harrison. We get to see a little more Chris in this episode than we've seen maybe the whole season.
I guess my question to that is, okay, so he comes in, he says, all right, you got the family date coming on. I'm not really sure if you're in the emotionally in the right place to then go meet these families, because at this point in the show, typically you've established somewhat of a relationship and you kind of know where you're going, and it seems like we've gotten knocked off course. That's what I felt like Chris Harrison was saying. Things have gotten knocked off a little bit, and we don't have a lot of time to do this, so we've got to figure out a way to give you the emotional connections you need.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way to do that is to even the playing field so that it's like, yeah, I was intimate with Nick, but I've also been intimate with the two of you. Now my question is, do you think that she's going to talk to those guys and tell them that she was intimate with Nick prior to then trying to be intimate with them? And that's what we're going to see next week, is her saying, listen, I'd love to go do this, but before we do, you must know I've had some time. I've been to the fantasy suite with Nick already. We have this date. I just wanted to say that before it got any more intimate.
Yes and no. I think she's going to tell everyone all at once. I don't think she's going to tell them one-on-one.
That's such an uncomfortable conversation.
God, this is the worst. I would hate to be in that position. Hate to be in her position.
But it's almost like for the process of the show, to respect the process, if you're going to talk about it, let's just blanket statement it. And let's just do it.
But why does she have to tell people that she doesn't have connections with, and she wasn't planning on taking that next level with?
Well, I mean,
does she owe it to them?
Look, other seasons they don't tell. Like, look, they get to the fantasy suite. It's not like any person after the fantasy suite, like, hey, by the way, before we go on to our fantasy date, I wanted to let you know that I was.
This person.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
maybe it does off camera.
It depends.
Maybe. I think depending on the person.
If they ask.
I mean, I'm sure some guys want to be like, so did you? Like, I want to know. Would you ask? Would you want to know?
But yet we still see those relationships carry on. And I think if she does it, we're going to see this meltdown. Because it wasn't within the subscribed rules of engagement at the fantasy suite, and I just think that that's bullshit.
And it's also, if she does want to salvage the relationships or certain relationships after she has this conversation, it needs to be a one-on-one thing, not here to these 5 or 4 guys, I slept with Nick, and then they all get upset and like wander off, and she can't go straight for like one guy and try to console him. Otherwise, it's really obvious who she wants to talk to about it.
Maybe she does tell them. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she does tell them one-on-one to the guys she wants to. Maybe they eliminate, and then the guys, the final like 3 then, because she's got to go down to 3. So maybe she tells the final 3 one-on-one.
Well, and if she didn't tell them, the audience would riot against her. They would riot against her for sure, because they're like, no, you have to tell her. But no other contestant has had to do that.
Yeah,
so she's in a hard position.
Ben had sex with Courtney in the ocean midway through the series or that season.
And Juan Pablo had
And that too, yeah.
sex in the ocean. Everyone's doing it in the ocean.
Something about
I don't
that
know,
ocean.
but they've never
You
had
gotta go
to
hang out in that ocean.
Gotta give me some of that ocean.
for whatever reason. If it's a double standard for women, they've never made this big a deal out of it. I feel like.
So basically, Chris breaks it down. Instead of 4 family dates, she's going to narrow from the 6 guys she has now to 3, and then meet the last 2 guys' families after the fantasy suite. So that's the new structure. That was the big thing when he said everything's about to change. We thought it was maybe going to be about Nick, but it wasn't. So that's
I think she
everything's
already
about to
knows
change.
top 3.
I think she does too. So they go right into it with the one-on-one with Chris Cupcake, the dentist. Tell me what you took away from this, because it just seemed like it was very quick to me. And Chris kind of let her know. Chris Harrison was like, "Hey, and if you know, like, send him home. Don't make him wait. Send him home." That was like his last piece of advice for her.
Well, and it was like get rid of all the emotional baggage that's currently here. So, and I think that's what the conversation with the producers.
Yeah.
In their meetings, they're going, look, how do we get her to this space? How do we help her out? Well, one of the ways is we need to get rid of the people that she doesn't really have any connections with. I mean, you do that as quickly as possible because it's taking up time and it's taking up an emotional space.
Cathy, your reactions to this state?
Well, when he was like, "We feel like it's really important for you to get alone time with these guys," all I heard was, "We feel like it's important to us to change up something this season so we can get better viewership." Like, that's what I heard from him. Because I don't see why they would change it up like this. Or maybe Ireland gave them more money for, these dates to continue there, because usually they go to a different location for them. Like they'll go overseas or somewhere, and then they'll go back to the US for hometowns, and then they'll go tropical for the final thing. But I don't know, it just seems off.
It's one or the other. It's either the producers were looking to make a change, and or they're like, we don't have a bachelorette that's at an emotional space that's gonna get us anywhere in the end.
Yeah. Well,
and they have to think about the franchise long term. I mean, if they continue to have Juan Pablo repeats, then they're gonna have major fallout. So they can't continue to go down that path.
They need to have a successful relationship out of this soon. Like another marriage soon. Because I think that a lot of people are losing faith in the franchise, or like thinking that, like, making a joke out of it, that so many couples have split up after they've been engaged.
yeah, we've had a couple good solid ones though lately.
Des and Chris.
Yeah.
Des and Chris, Shawn and Catherine.
Well, Shawn and Catherine are now on Marriage Boot Camp or something like that, some reality show.
Yeah, but I
Really?
think it's just for ratings. They seem like they're doing fantastic. It could just be
I
social
hope so.
media. I don't know either of them, but so Chris, the cupcake dentist. Did you guys think he was going to jump off the cliff?
He was so
Looked
close,
like that
he made
a little
everyone
bit.
nervous.
Heck?
And I looked at the bottom of his shoes earlier. He had like leather bottom shoes, and that's grass. That stuff's slick.
He like stepped, and then the camera person kind of like, if this is the camera, was like,
She's like,
Yeah.
You about to suicidal?
he might jump off. Can't give you whatever. We need a couple guys.
I do not want to clean up the frosting of this.
It's weird because it seemed like he took it really well at the beginning. Like, he was like, "She deserves the world.
Yeah.
I didn't see this coming."
And then he lost it. He
Yeah.
went into ugly cry mode.
Can I
would
speak
think-
to that?
Yep.
So I think there's some emotional, having been through this myself.
Tell us about it.
I
Brooks.
cried. We all saw it.
did.
Let's stop tiptoeing around it. I looked like an idiot.
No.
But part of that is, part of the reason that I was crying when I left the season with Des, not only because of the end of the relationship with Des, but there's all this other emotional stuff that you're not used to dealing with that finally comes to an end. And I think Chris was
Like
dealing
what?
with that as well. You're up late, you're dealing with like this weird social experiment that you've never had to deal with, and you're somewhat, trying to watch your P's and Q's as well, because you're trying to put your best foot forward, and you're trying to not offend the guys in the house, and you're also trying to date this girl. So all of that, I think, kind of comes to an end when you realize this is the closing of a chapter, and I think it's somewhat emotional. And I think that that's part of maybe why Chris started to then lose it a little bit.
okay.
I'm no expert, but I'm an expert.
Yeah. I think it's tough. One of the things that he said during his final interview was they never choose me. And that's a feeling that I know I've had in the past. I know a lot of my friends have had. It sucks, like, when you have that recurring feeling of, like, you aren't the person that they choose. And I think that he is going to find someone. He seems like a catch. It kind of seemed like Kaitlyn was trying to let him down easy by saying, oh, you are the one, like, on paper you're great, I should be with you. But clearly, I think everyone saw that there wasn't a real connection there.
Yeah.
She's known for weeks that there wasn't a real connection there, or else she would be making out with him, and she would do, like, closed-mouth kisses all the time.
Why did he say also they never see it? They just never see it. That was the last thing he said.
That was what I was alluding to.
Oh.
I think it was like girls never see that he's husband material.
Oh, I thought he also said they never choose me. I thought he said that, and then he also said they never see it. But because the last thing he said was like they just never see it. Was that meaning kind of the same thing?
I think so. That's how I interpreted it, at least. And that's an awful feeling to feel.
Yeah, geez, yeah, it is. Well, so we're down to 5. Mm-hmm. And we're going to cut 2 of them next week. Do you think an hour into the show we'll have a rose ceremony?
I don't even know.
I think next week will be the big change, like the
How many
big pinnacle.
dates does she still get? Does she have a group date and then another one-on-one next
think
week
it's
before
gotta be.
That's tough because, I mean, having a group date and being unsure about people or...
Well, so, because technically the rose ceremony happened, this was her first one-on-one, yeah, so one more one-on-one and a group date, and then the next rose ceremony.
I don't see her keeping anyone other than Shawn, Nick, and Ben H as the final 3.
Yeah.
I don't see a connection with any of the other guys.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that they're bad guys at all. I just don't see their relationships evolving.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let us know if you guys agree. Shawn, Nick, and Ben H, who's your final 3? And then who's getting hometowns? Out of those 3. Predictions.
I think all 3 of them get hometowns or just the final 2?
2.
What?
The 3 get the fantasy suite. So 3 get the fantasy suite. If one of them is Nick, does he get another fantasy suite? Mm-hmm. And then after one of them goes, then 2. So who's your 3 and your 2, Brooks?
I'm going to choose Nick and Ben H. I'm going to take Shawn out of it.
Oh.
Okay.
And can I back that up with some, or just, go
That's
ahead,
it.
Cathy.
Just your prediction.
I want to know what you were going to back it up with first, and then I can make my decision.
I just feel like there's too much emotional connection with, like, there's too much emotional, like, dissidence, I guess, between her and Shawn, and I think that's going to start messing with her head, and it's going to start messing with his. And I think she's ultimately going, I know I have a connection with Nick, so I'm going to send him home to make it easier for me to focus either on Ben H and or Nick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't send Nick home at this point.
Kath?
I think I already said my final 3, Ben H, Nick, and Shawn. I think the final 2 is going to be Shawn and Nick. I think in this next couple weeks we see Shawn and Ben H both put a huge guard up. But we see that she has much more of a connection, or at least she's voiced that she has much more of a connection with Shawn. So I think she keeps him around.
Well, there we go. All right. We'll
What do
see.
you think? Well,
I think it's going to come out of Nick and Shawn.
Nick and Shawn.
Nick and Shawn. I think it's Nick and Shawn. That's my
How
predictions.
Sad and like fun at the same time. Like you get to be on a helicopter and like do all this stuff, and then you get dumped on a cliff, and she goes in the helicopter alone, and you're just stuck
And then you
standing
almost
there.
dump yourself on a cliff.
And then you have to walk all the way back into
All
town.
the way back.
Okay, now but Cathy Kelley, have you or have you not seen the Twitter pic?
Of what?
The Twitter pic of that Kaitlyn had
Oh,
posted.
this Snapchat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes, I have. Unfortunately. And I hate spoilers, and everyone knows that. I never, ever read spoilers. And I'm very upset because it was retweeted in my feed.
But do you think that was a setup to make you think one way when it's not?
Yeah,
when
we
it's
talked about
not
this.
in reality. You brought that up.
I don't want to say who it was in the picture again, just because a lot of people said it was spoiled. I have no idea.
Like you think it's reality TV.
To me, I think that they were actually hanging out. I don't see. I mean, like, obviously they were hanging out. There's no other way you can Snapchat a picture. I think it was.
There are apps you can do that.
I don't know. Yeah, they could have Snapchatted that and then screenshotted it and used it.
There are apps that you can do that.
So who knows that if you think you got it, the spoiler alert just might.
I mean, if that
Sorry
was
for
real, the bachelors and bachelorettes have like those contracts that they say if you spoil it, you owe us $1 million in court and whatever else. So I really hope that that wasn't real
I'm
for
on
her
record
sake.
saying it's a setup. I think it's a setup. We'll see.
Oh, by the way, I watched this little interview with Maria Menounos and Amy Schumer. They talked about her being the next Bachelorette. And she was like, would you do it? And she's like, well, I mean, they'd have to change some things. And she was like, Maria goes, well, like what things? She goes, first of all, their titles of their jobs, former like investment banker, former baseball player, like, no, they gotta like be doing something. And then she's like, all right, well, what else would they have to change? She's like, well, they'd have to pay me a lot of money. A lot of it. And I just thought it was interesting. So she is available to become the next Bachelorette if ABC will cough up the $1 million that they're going to sue Kaitlyn for. They just
move it.
Just shift it over to Amy. Then we can get her on.
Every single season, there's always some celebrity who they say is potentially in the running to be the next Bachelor or Bachelorette, and it never pans out. I think John Mayer was in the running at one point because he said
Brady was in the runnings.
Yeah, there's been so many people. Tom Brady. What?
Yeah, because he's married. And that's with kids.
He would have a deflated ego during the entire episode. So I don't know. I don't see her being the next Bachelorette. I would love that personally. I don't think that it would cater to Middle America with her humor as much as I love her.
Yeah.
But I do kind of wonder if we see Ben Z in some other thing, whether he's Bachelor or in Bachelor in Paradise or something.
There's gotta be a couple of these guys in Bachelor in Paradise.
That Claire promo was hilarious for Bachelor in Paradise.
Yeah, that Claire promo was awesome.
Recut the raccoon conversation.
That'll be really good.
So funny.
Any other thoughts?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, that is our show. Thank you guys for hanging out with us here at the Bachelorette After Show. In the meantime, Brooks, where can people find you?
Just let's chat on Twitter and on Snapchat. Go to my Twitter, @BrooksForster.
And what's your Snapchat? And your email and your social security?
Every time, @Brooks-Forster. I keep seeing dash and people get confused. It's Brooks-Forster.
Okay.
Kathy?
You can find me on Twitter @Catherine Kelley, on Instagram @Cathy Kelley, and I do a weekly radio show with my friend Francia, called What the Francia. That's tomorrow night, and we have a special guest, Allison Stoner.
Oh, Allison Ray.
Nice.
She's awesome. I love that girl.
She preaches. She's so good.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram @Danny Hoyt, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.